I will call the meeting to order by taking attendance roll call to ensure we have a quorum for the meeting. So are there questions before we call to order? Oops. Hearing none, I will call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development Committee of the Met Council to order. And Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen. Chambliss.
Here.
Cummings.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Lilligren.
Here.
Lindstrom.
Here.
Mousset. Vento.
Here.
Wolf.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. We have a quorum, and the first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Members can see the posted agenda, and if there are no objections or changes, we can move on to business. Any objections or changes? Seeing none, we have an agenda, and the next item is approval of the minutes, and I would entertain a motion to approve, please.
Vento moves approval.
Wolf seconds.
Thank you, council members. Any discussion on that motion? Discussion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen. Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Mousset. Vento. Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That item is adopted and our minutes are approved. Our first order of business is 2020-262. It is the public hearing for the Regional Parks Policy Plan. And I will call on Director Barajas for some instruction, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for joining us today for the draft 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan update public hearing. I'm your host, Lisa Barajas, the Community Development Director here at the Council, and I'd like to first go through some housekeeping. First, everyone is currently muted, as the chair noted earlier, and you will remain muted until you are recognized to speak. Please use the raise hand feature if you would like to provide a comment. You may use the chat to provide a comment, however, your message will only be seen by the hosts and the panelists. If you have dialed into this meeting and wish to speak, please dial *3 to raise your hand. Once the public comment is complete, the chair will end the public hearing and the Community Development Committee will continue its regularly scheduled business. You are welcome to remain on the event and listen to the entire meeting if you please.
Thank you, Director Barajas. We will now begin the public hearing, and committee members, our role is to listen to the public comments. A link to the draft 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan 2020 update will be provided in the chat for this meeting. The 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan 2020 update presents the Metropolitan Council's policies and plans to guide development of the regional park system. This update includes 26 new and expanded regional parks, trails, special recreation features, and search areas for future parks, a new bridging recreation feature, new policy for regional park and trail boundary adjustments, a requirement for equity analysis in master plans and studies, and additional policy clarifications. Your registration for this event serves as your registration to provide a public comment. If you have a comment, please raise your hand and the host will call on you and you will be unmuted. Anyone who wishes to Anyone who wishes to can provide public comments. In order to comment, please raise your hand and the host will unmute your microphone. To best find time for those who wish to speak, we may use time limits for comments. Individuals will have 3 minutes to comment. Representatives of organizations will have 5 minutes. Depending on the amount of people that want to speak, we may be able to relax those times a little bit, but we will be keeping time. And so now I will turn back to Director Barajas to recognize those wishing to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you speak, please state your name, your place of residence, and the organization, if any, that you represent. Written statements, in addition to oral comments, are also accepted, and you may send a written copy of your remarks to that email address that the chair noted earlier, public.info@metc.state.mn.us, as is noted on the slide here. I did have some pre-registration ahead of time, and the first person who noted that they would like to speak in their pre-registration was Janine Gilmer. I hope I said that right. I'll try to unmute you, or perhaps Katie, you could unmute Janine.
She's unmuted now.
Thank
Hi.
you.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I don't know if you can see me. I can't figure out my camera. But I just wanted to put forth the idea, and I speak on behalf partly of the Twin Cities Community Agricultural Land Trust, that we would consider reserving some land in parks for agricultural production, for community gardens and small market farms. I think there's consistently what I hear is a large demand from people who often have deep agricultural knowledge, but really lack access to land to farm close to home, and oftentimes have a hard time accessing that further out away from the city core as well.
Thank you, Ms. Gilmer. And if I could please ask you to state your name and your place of residence in the organization, if any, you represent, for the record.
Sure. My name is Janine Gilmer, Gilmer, the Twin Cities Community Agricultural Trust, TCULT, and I live in Prospect Park in Minneapolis.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I would also ask if there are any other attendees who would like to speak, to use your raise hand function. Otherwise, that is the end of our list. Oh, thank you. I see that Jonathan Vlaming has his hand raised.
I will go ahead and unmute him right now. He should be unmuted.
Thank you.
Yes, I believe I am. Good afternoon. My name is Jonathan Vlaming. I'm a resident of Golden Valley, and I'm the Associate Superintendent for Planning and Design at Three Rivers Park District. On behalf of Three Rivers Park District, I'd like to thank the Community Development Committee, the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission, and the Council Park staff for their thoughtful and extensive work on the update of the Regional Park System Plan. In particular, I'd like to thank you all for including all of Three Rivers' proposed system additions. Once implemented, these additions will benefit residents of the region for generations to come. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vlaming. And I don't see any other hands raised on our attendee list. So, Mr. Chair, I would offer that I believe we have completed our comments as part of this public hearing.
Thank you, Director Barajas, and to our testifiers today. Thanks for being involved, and people can continue to provide comments at the email provided. Comments will be accepted through 5 p.m. on October 30th. So at this time, the public comment portion of the Community Development Committee is complete. Audience members, you're welcome to stay as we proceed with the business of the Council's regular Community Development Committee meeting. Again, thanks again for your participation. Committee members, next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Again, this is a new feature of non-controversial items. We have item 2020-265, that's the City of Apple Valley Golf Course Comprehensive Plan Amendment. We have 2020-278, That's the authorization for approval of a limited one-year extension for Livable Communities Act grants for COVID-19 related reasons, and 2020-279 adoption of the utility allowance schedule for Metro HRA rent assistance program. Staff is on hand, and council members, is there any item that committee members would like removed from the consent for further discussion or information? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Cummings moves approval.
Lindstrom seconds.
Thank you, council members. And no, any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the consent agenda.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the consent agenda is adopted. Moving on to our non-consent items. The first is 2020-263, a joint committees item. It's a comprehensive plan and comprehensive sewer plan for the city of Loretto. And Freya Thaumann is here to present. Welcome, Ms. Thaumann.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Freya Thaumann, and I'm the sector representative for District 1. And today I'll be presenting the City of Loretto's 2040 Comprehensive Plan. The City of Loretto is a small community with dedicated staff, and I'd really like to thank the City Administrator, Mary Schneider, as well as City Planner Bob Kermis for their coordination on the City of Loretto's plan. The City of Loretto is a recipient of one of the Council's small communities planning grants. With that, I'll start with the first slide. The City of Loretto is located in northwest Hennepin County. As you can see here, it's completely surrounded by the city of Medina. Loretto is a community that has about 650 people, and it's approximately 165 acres. As shown here, Thrive MSP 2040 designates Loretto as having a suburban community designation with households growth at densities of at least 5 units an acre. Next slide, please. This slide shows the regional systems in the city of Loretto. The main regional system is the Lake Independence Regional Trail running north-south through the community. For a small community, Loretto is about to make a big change. It's in the process of transitioning from local to regional wastewater service. It's expected that service will be established in 2021, and interim service will occur through connection to a local wastewater collection system in Independence and Medina until direct regional service is provided in around 2040. The city's 2040 plan is scheduled for the Environment Committee on October 27th. Next slide, please. Loretto is anticipated to have very little change during the planning period. Between 2020 and 2040, the council forecasts that the city will grow by 50 people, representing 20 households, and that during that time period, there'll be no change in jobs. Next slide, please. Loretto is a fully developed community. It's anticipated to grow primarily through redevelopment in the area's guided mixed use. As shown here, the city's net residential density is 5 to 15 units an acre, which is consistent with council policy for suburban communities. Next slide, please. This slide shows the existing land uses in Loretto. They're predominantly single-family residential in yellow. It's about 65% of the community. They've got a large area of park in the northwest, which is green. And then other uses include industrial in purple, institutional in blue, commercial in red, multifamily residential in orange. And then there's a small area of mixed use in the center part of the city in pink. There's only a few remaining undeveloped areas in the city, and those are shown in the gray crosshatch. Next slide, please. This is the city's 2040 planned land uses. They're similar to the existing land uses. The forecasted household growth as mentioned during the planning period, is anticipated within the area's guided mixed use, and those are in pink. As shown here, most of the mixed use and the commercial is in areas that are along or near County Road 19, which runs north-south through the center part of the city. Next slide, please. Staff review of the City of Loretto's 2040 Comprehensive Plan found that the plan conforms to Metropolitan system plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent local governmental units in affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. As mentioned earlier, this plan is scheduled for the October 27th Environment Committee and is on the agenda for the Metropolitan Council meeting on November 4th. Next slide, please. The proposed action before you today is to authorize the City of Loretto to place its 2040 Comprehensive Plan into effect and to advise the city to provide the council date the Watershed Commission approved the local water management plan and the date the city adopted the final local water management plan, and then to implement the advisory comments in the review record for forecasts, land use, and water supply. And with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thomson, for your report and for your work on this. Committee members, questions on that report?
Mr. Chair?
And I'm sorry, is that
Councilmember Johnson? Yep. Mr. Chair, I just want to thank Freya, and I also really want to thank Janine Clancy. It was mentioned that they are transitioning their wastewater system to the regional system, and that took some doing. And I really also want to, thank the mayor and the council, but also thank the mayor and Council of Independence and the mayor and councils in Medina, because it was kind of a group effort to help out Loretto so that they could manage kind of what was becoming a problem for them from everything that I've understood throughout the process. I just want to add, it is a lovely community. If you have a chance to go there, please do. They have this cluster of wonderful restaurants, home cooked food, chefs that are putting together dishes that would make everybody else just, I think, your mouth water. And it's also host to the Choo Choo restaurant where the Northwest Municipal League of Cities meets. You've probably heard that I and my predecessors have gone there. So anyways, it's a lovely community and I'm proud to support their plan. They work really hard and I'm just really honored to serve them as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Did you want to move this item, move approval?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would move approval.
Thank you.
Councilmember Wolf would like to second and also comment that they have a fantastic baseball field. That great green area in the large green park includes a spectacular baseball field.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Wolf and Councilmember Johnson for describing what must be a great community. I'll visit it. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Chambliss?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Lilligren?
Aye.
Lindstrom?
Aye.
Vento?
Aye.
Wolf?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That motion carries. And we'll move on to our next business item, 2020-264, another joint committees item. It is the City of St. Paul 2040 Comprehensive Plan and Comprehensive Sewer Plan. And that'll be presented by Michael Larson. Mr. Larson, thanks for being.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Michael Larson, Planning Analyst and Sector Representative in the Local Planning Assistance Group in the Community Development Division. Before you today is the review of the St. Paul 2040 Comprehensive Plan. First of all, I'd like to thank the significant efforts of city staff in developing the comprehensive plan. They include long-term principal planner Lucy Thompson, who has since retired, planning director Luis Pereira, principal planner Josh Williams, senior city planner Anton Jervey, and city planner Bill Dermody. Next slide, please. The map that you see before you is Figure 1 of the staff report, and it identifies the locations of regional system components within the city of St. Paul. And as a large central city, St. Paul is served by all of the regional systems, including Interstates 94 and 35E, as well as the Metro Green Line. Multiple interceptor sewers carry wastewater to be treated at the Metro plant in St. Paul. And this includes the large 1-MS-100 sewer, which we may be interested in here, is nearly 12 feet in diameter as it travels across the city adjacent to Interstate 94. There are 8 regional parks and special recreation features in the city, 3 regional trails, and 8 regional trail search corridors. Next slide, please. St. Paul, as you know, is located in southern Ramsey County, as shown as Figure 2 of the staff report, with the city having the Thrive community designation of urban center. Next slide, please. Table 1, also in your staff report, shows that between 2020 and 2040, the council forecasts that the city will grow by 29,100 people, representing 12,700 households. The council forecasts an increase of 18,800 jobs in the city in the same time frame. Research staff and community development do note that the current employment estimate of 184,000 is lagging behind the 2020 forecast, which is nearly 195,000. Although a forecast adjustment is a possibility and consideration, the city and region are planning for and support the level of growth that we are currently forecasting for the time horizon. Next slide, please. Table 3 from the staff report shown here illustrates the planned residential density in the city. The overall planned density for residential uses is expected to be between 34.3 and 127.5 units per acre, supported by policies for residential densities that you can see in the table range from 20 to 300 units per acre in the downtown. Communities with urban center designations under Thrive are expected to plan for forecasted population and household growth at overall average minimum densities of 20 units per acre for new development and redevelopment. And as you can see, St. Paul's plan is consistent with this policy. Next slide, please. The city's existing land use here refers to Figure 3 in the staff report. As a central city, as you know, St. Paul has a long and important history in the region. Starting with a significant feature, our burial mounds in present-day Indian Mounds Regional Park suggests that the area was inhabited by the Hopewell Native Americans approximately 2,000 years ago. This area was first proposed as a park space by Horace Cleveland in a speech that he gave in 1888. Incorporated as a city in 1854, the city is the seat of state government and is home to numerous regional, cultural, educational, entertainment, and sporting institutions, as well as, I'm sure you know, many, many mouth-watering restaurants. St. Paul, like Minneapolis, reflects decades of national and international migration to the area, changing technologies and redevelopment since its incorporation. Streetcar technology influenced original development patterns that are now currently supported in reinforcements by the region in transit service like the Metro Green Line, the A Line, as well as high-frequency local bus service. Next slide, please. The city's future land use map shown here is Figure 4 in your staff report. On this map, downtown St. Paul has the guiding land use of downtown, which supports a mix of high-density office, institutional, and residential uses. The circles that you see throughout the city are locations of the plan's 35 designated neighborhood nodes that provide policy support for a greater concentration of uses at these locations. The mixed-use land use, shown in dark gray, is a guiding land use that you see consistently across the city to varying degrees along the city's transit corridors, at these neighborhood nodes, and at various shopping center concentrations. Industrial, shown in purple, is the guiding land use that you see consistently across the city in conjunction with regional freight corridors and access, including both the riverfront as well as the BNSF intermodal terminal in the West Midway area. Outside of these areas, like most communities, the predominant map color of yellow reflects the designation of urban neighborhood. Next slide, please. Figure 5 in the staff report shown here identifies locations throughout the city where redevelopment opportunities are likely or possible and are the basis for the acreage that was identified in Table 3. The majority of these sites are located in existing or emerging concentration of employment and or housing like the Metro Green Line at neighborhood nodes and in downtown. The plan also identifies on its maps, including this one, areas of concentrated poverty where more than 50% of the population are persons of color, as shown on this map with the yellow boundary. That includes the city's west side, north, and an east side. And the plan states an intention to use these geographies to guide approaches to equitable development, including investment, monitoring, and evaluation. Next slide, please. So the proposed findings by staff for you today are that the St. Paul Comprehensive Plan conforms to Metropolitan system plans, is consistent with council policies, and is compatible with the plans of adjacent local governmental units and affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. On Tuesday, October 27th, Environmental Services staff will present to the Environment Committee, and then this will be on the full council agenda on November 4th. Next slide, please. The proposed actions for you today are to authorize the City of St. Paul to place its 2040 Comprehensive Plan into effect, to revise the sewer service forecast for the city to show that the entire population and household forecast will be sewer serviced by 2030 and 2040, as shown in Table 2 of the review record. Next slide, please. And prior to final adoption, advise the city to implement the following advisory comments in the review record: to revise Appendix B, to remove the reference to Robert Street as a project identified in the 2040 TPP list of transitways, to correct the designations of 2 regional bicycle transportation network corridors, to address comments regarding the mapping of freight information on map T-15, to address comments regarding the modification of transportation analysis zone employment allocations, and to incorporate the Department of Works 5-year capital plan summary in the implementation chapter. These are probably more, I'll just pause there and say these are probably more detailed advisory comments than they're used to, but these are really minor corrections and clarifications that staff determined during the final review process. And finally, next slide, please. Finally, to advise the city that once completed, to submit to the council a copy of revised Chapter 50 of the St. Paul Legislative Code regarding standards and specifications for SSTS, accompanied by a copy of the resolution adopting the new rule. Within 60 days after receiving DNR final approval, the city must adopt the Mississippi River Critical Corridor Plan and submit a copy of the final adopted plan and evidence of adoption to the DNR, Council, and National Park Service within 10 days after the adoption. And finally, to implement the advisory comments regarding employment and household forecasts during future comprehensive amendments. And with that, next slide, that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions that you might have about this review.
Thank you, Mr. Larson, for the presentation. Excellent presentation and all the work on that plan. I also will note that in the chat, Councilmember Alice Ingerbranson has joined us during your presentation. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Larson on that presentation or on this comprehensive plan? Any questions? Hearing none. Councilmember Lee, did you want to move the staff recommendation for this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Moved by Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Vento seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Discussion. And I will note in the chat, Councilmember Muse is in the meeting as well as a call-in user. So thanks for being here, Councilmember. Hearing no discussion on the motion, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Mousse,
Aye.
Vento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That item is adopted. And we'll move on to our next business item. It's 2020-266. It's the City of Lake Elmo Hot and Weir Properties Comprehensive Plan Amendment, and that will be presented by Raya Smalley. Mrs. Smalley, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and council members. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thanks.
Perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Raya Smiley. I'm a senior planner in local planning assistance, and before you today is a comprehensive plan amendment from the City of Lake Elmo that's called Pot and Weir Properties. Next slide, please. Perfect. Thank you. So this is the figure 1 of the staff report. This map shows the regional systems in relation to the amendment site. There aren't any regional system components within half a mile of the amendment site. The closest regional system component is about 0.6 miles from the site, and that is the Central Greenway Regional Trail, the planned trail. Next slide. Thank you. As shown in figure 2 of the staff report, this map shows the community designation of the city, as well as the proposed revised community designation of the subject parcels from rural residential to emerging suburban edge, which is a result of the extension of the Metropolitan Urban Service Area, which I will go into a little more detail in a second. So as you see in this map, the subject property is shown as what we are proposing this to be. Next slide, please. So the amendment proposes to extend the Metropolitan Urban Service Area, or MUSA, boundary to include 2 parcels. It's about 27 acres totals, and they're adjacent to the north side of the village area of Lake Elmo. The amendment also re-guides the 2 parcels from rural area development, which is 1 unit per 10 acres, to a designation that's called village low density residential. That's 1.5 to 3 dwelling units an acre. And that's in anticipation of this area eventually developing with municipal sanitary sewer and water. So there currently is not a development proposed associated with this amendment. So since the rural residential community designation is precluded from the provision of wastewater services, staff is recommending to revise the community designation of the subject parcels from rural residential to emerging suburban edge in order to be able to provide that service in the future. Next slide, please. Thank you. So this is figure 3 of the staff report, which shows the existing land use for the amendment site that was rural area development. The areas to the south of the subject site are also currently designated as village low density residential. Next slide, please. So this is figure 4, the planned land use for the amendment site that is village low density residential, which matches, as I mentioned, the parcels that are just to the south of the properties. Next slide, please. So table 1 from the staff report, also shown here, it shows the planned residential density in the city. The amendment, the changes are underlined in the table, and the amendment results in a very slight decrease in the overall density of the city from 4.1 to 4 units an acre. And this is part of the emerging suburban edge areas of the city. Emerging suburban edge communities have to meet a minimum of 3 to 5 units an acre for density, and the plan remains consistent with the council policy for land use in that matter. Next slide, please. So the findings here are that the proposed amendment conforms to regional system plans and is consistent with council policies and is compatible with the plans of adjacent affected jurisdictions. Next slide, please. So the proposed action before you today is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the City of Lake Elmo to place its Pot and Weir Properties Comprehensive Plan Amendment into effect, revise the Thrive MSP 2040 community designation of the 2 subject parcels from rural residential to emerging suburban edge as shown in Figure 2 of the review record, and find that the amendment does not change the city's forecast. And next slide. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Smiley. Any questions on that report, committee members? Any questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve this item, please.
Vento moves approval.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Coming second.
Seconds.
Thank you, Councilmembers. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Lucet,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That item is adopted. And we will move on to our next item, which is the Grand Round North Regional Trail Master Plan from the City of St. Paul, and that will be presented by Colin Kelly. Mr. Kelly, thanks for being here.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. Good afternoon, Chair Lilligren and council members. I am Colin Kelly, planning analyst, and I'm here to present the Grand Round North Regional Trail Master Plan on behalf of the City of St. Paul. Next slide, please. All right. As you may know, the Grand Round North Regional Trail is located near the center of the regional park system in the City of St. Paul, as illustrated in the map on the left. This is Figure 1 in the staff report. When complete, the approximately 13-mile-long regional trail will connect Mississippi Gorge Regional Park to Como and Phelan Regional Parks, the Gateway State Trail, Bruce Vento Regional Trail, and Indian Mounds Regional Park. The map on the right coincides with Figure 2 in the staff report, which labels the 3 regional trail search corridors this regional trail will subsume, including Mississippi Como, Como Phelan Wheelock Parkway, and Johnson Parkway. Next slide, please. Community outreach and engagement, particularly to the multiple ethnic, cultural, and socioeconomic communities throughout St. Paul, was and is critical to the design and implementation of the Grand Round. The methods of engagement focused on informing and consulting the community and involving them at interactive workshops and pop-up meetings. So, who was engaged? Residents all along the trail route, including at McDonough Homes and Commonwealth Terrace Cooperative, where proactive efforts were made to expand opportunities for members of underrepresented communities. These locations were chosen, in part, to reach local residents who live in public housing, or low income, or within communities of color, are students, or who may not speak English as a primary language. Agencies, including the Minnesota Department of Transportation, Ramsey County, and Metro Transit have been, and will continue to be, involved in the planning and implementation process, as will advocacy nonprofits like the St. Paul Bicycle Coalition and Move Minnesota. What did participants say? According to the master plan, several key themes emerged throughout the engagement efforts. Support for the plan was prevalent. The needs of both bicyclists and pedestrians must be considered. There was a strong preference for facilities that are separated from motor vehicles, and related, safety was a concern for many participants. Amenities like restrooms, water fountains, and benches are desired as well. Finally, connections and better wayfinding to and from existing trails are desired. Next slide, please. All segments and facilities of the regional trail will be constructed to be compliant with the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. The standard design is a 10-foot bike trail where it is parallel to a minimum 5-foot sidewalk for pedestrians, as pictured in the image in the lower right-hand corner. Otherwise, the trail is generally 12 feet wide where no adjacent pedestrian facility exists due to space constraints. Approximately 1/3 of the regional trail has already been constructed since the adoption of the 2017 Grand Round Design and Implementation Plan. The master plan indicates that the trail will not be considered fully realized until all trail segments are off the street. Where on-street trails currently exist, for example, along a portion of Wheelock Parkway and along Raymond Avenue and Pelham Boulevard, they are considered an interim condition. Separated trails will be constructed as street improvements are made. Lastly, all segments of the Grand Round North Regional Trail are contained within the existing public right-of-way and parkland, and therefore no acquisitions are necessary to develop the trail. Development cost estimates include trail construction, wayfinding signage, site furnishings, lighting, and vegetation improvements. The City of St. Paul estimates these costs at $11,058,000. Last but not least, it is important to note that the approval of the master plan does not commit the council to any funding at this time. Further council action is needed to approve any grants to the City of St. Paul for the development of the Grand Round North Regional Trail. Next slide, please. The Grand Round North Regional Trail Master Plan is consistent with the requirements of the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan, including Planning Policy Strategy 1, also known as Master Plan requirements, and other council policies, such as those included in Thrive MSP 2040. Next slide, please. The proposed action before you then is that the Metropolitan Council approve the City of St. Paul's Grand Round North Regional Trail Master Plan, require the City of St. Paul, prior to initiating any new development of the regional trail corridor, to send preliminary plans to the Metropolitan Council's Environmental Services Division Assistant Manager, and encourage the City of St. Paul to implement advisory comments in the consistency with other council policies and systems section regarding stormwater, natural resources, and solar. At the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission meeting on October 1st, the Commission voted to approve the proposed action with 7 ayes, 1 abstention, and no nays. And with that, I will stand for any comments or questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Questions or comments on that report? Any questions or comments? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for the proposed act to approve the proposed action.
Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson moves.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Lindstrom seconds.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebretson,
Aye.
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Lilligren,
Aye.
Lindstrom,
Aye.
Mousset,
Aye.
Bento,
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. That item is adopted. And we'll move on to our next business item, 2020-244. It's the Shingle Creek Regional Trail Master Plan, including new supplemental information on proposed park-like amenities within the regional trail corridor. This is from the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board. And again, Mr. Kelly will present. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, for the record, I am Colin Kelly, planning analyst, and I'm here to present the Shingle Creek Regional Trail Master Plan on behalf of the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, or MPRB. Next slide, please. Shingle Creek Regional Trail is also located near the center of the regional park system in the northernmost portion of Minneapolis. The maps here parallel figures 1 and 2 in the staff report. Shingle Creek Regional Trail spans implementing agency jurisdictions and has segments in both Minneapolis and Three Rivers Park District. Today's focus is on the approximately 2.5-mile portion of Shingle Creek Regional Trail in Minneapolis. The regional trail connects to North Mississippi Regional Park via the 49th Avenue corridor and at the regional trail's southern terminus, where it connects to Victory Memorial Parkway and the Grand Round Scenic Byway. North of Minneapolis, Shingle Creek Regional Trail connects to the Twin Lakes Regional Trail in Brooklyn Center and the Rush Creek Regional Trail in Brooklyn Park. Next slide, please. Shingle Creek Regional Trail is included in MPRB's broader North Service Area Master Plan because the regional trail runs through and is linked to local neighborhood parks on Minneapolis's north side. Fortunately, by including Shingle Creek in the North Service Area Master Plan, it leveraged a larger planning process to bring more people into the Shingle Creek Master Plan process. That engagement process occurred over a year and a half and involved a wide variety of initiatives, more than 100 direct engagement events, and personal contacts with thousands of park users and residents. There was also a separate Shingle Creek work group which convened multiple times to help envision and design the regional trail corridor. The work group had direct involvement with the project throughout the design process. The Shingle Creek Master Plan also includes an equity analysis that discusses local demographics and specifically links community engagement with regional trail development concepts. The regional trail and associated trail corridor land is the primary park amenity in the northernmost section of Minneapolis. This area is unique in skewing demographically older than other north side neighborhoods, and also in having a higher than average population of people of Asian descent. The specific equity considerations in the development concept address these two underserved groups, mainly through the introduction of new court facilities. Another overarching equity consideration is to provide like facilities in different parts of the MPRB system, regardless of income levels near these parks. Given the landscape context, parallels can easily be drawn between Minnehaha and Shingle Creek regional trails. However, the connectivity of trails, number of bridges, quality of natural environment, and other park amenities are not as pronounced at Shingle Creek as they are at Minnehaha Parkway. By augmenting amenities at Shingle Creek, MPRB can ensure equitable levels of service across its system. Next slide, please. The overall concept for Shingle Creek Regional Trail makes some targeted changes in the three main use areas of the trail corridor without fundamentally changing the character of the trail corridor itself. The map on the left is figure 3 in the staff report. Today, we will focus on the Creekview Park area where some new facilities are being proposed. As you may know, Shingle Creek Regional Trail is a bit of a hybrid between a regional and a neighborhood facility. MPRB understands that some proposed elements may not be typical within regional facilities. The master plan outlines all development proposed by MPRB, whether or not certain items would be allowable under regional or state funding. That said, I'd like to briefly draw your attention to the supplemental information which has been attached to the staff report. This letter from MPRB is meant to clearly articulate and differentiate the proposed amenities in the Shingle Creek Regional Trail Corridor, which should be considered regional from MPRB's perspective. I should note that this letter and its differentiation between regional and local master plan amenities is specific to Shingle Creek Regional Trail and associated regional trail corridor land in the specific geographic context of North Minneapolis. There are no acquisition costs associated with the master plan. but development costs are estimated to be $19,479,205. Lastly, approval of this master plan does not commit the council to any funding at this time. Further council action is needed to approve any grants to Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board for the development of the Shingle Creek Regional Trail Corridor. Next slide, please. The Creekview Park area of Shingle Creek Regional Trail will remain organized mainly as it is today, with the addition of a few specialized facilities meant to draw new users of underserved demographics to the regional trail. The map you see here is Figure 5 in the staff report. The play area remains in its existing location. The skate park is relocated and expanded and improved to a location behind the recreation center and middle school. The baseball field is removed in favor of 4 pickleball-specific courts. This sport is growing significantly in popularity among seniors, and this would be the first dedicated pickleball courts in the Minneapolis system. According to the master plan, their location at a regional trail hub would also encourage use from outside the city by people visiting by a bicycle. Near 51st Avenue, within the regional trail corridor, 4 new Sepik Takra courts will invite new users into this space. Currently, Minneapolis has no such courts, and the neighborhood in which this park sits has expressed a strong desire to have them. As with the pickleball courts, the location along a regional trail will invite players to bike down from Brooklyn Park and elsewhere to play. Next slide, please. The Shingle Creek Regional Trail Master Plan is consistent with the requirements of the 2040 Regional Parks Policy Plan, including Planning Strategy 1, Master Plan requirements, Recreation Activities and Facilities Strategies 1 through 3, which includes Strategy 1, Balance, Conservation, and Recreation, Strategy 2, Range of Recreation Opportunities, and Strategy 3, Equitable Use, as well as other council policies, such as those found in Thrive MSP 2040. Next slide, please. The proposed action before you then is that the Metropolitan Council approve Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board's Shingle Creek Regional Trail Master Plan, including the supplemental information provided in the clarification of submittal of Shingle Creek Regional Trail Master Plan letter dated September 2nd, 2020, and require the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board, prior to initiating any new development of the regional trail corridor, to send preliminary plans to the Environmental Services Assistant Manager at the Metropolitan Council's Environmental Services Division. I should note that at the Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission meeting on October 1st, the Commission voted to approve the proposed action with 6 ayes, 2 abstentions, and no nays. And with that, I stand for any comments or questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Any comments or questions on that report?
Chair, this is Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson.
Please.
Thank you. I just, to add into the comments that Colin shared last regarding conversations at MPOSC, we had a very robust conversation about how this plan is moving us in a very intentional and responsive way in advancing equity, both in the context of one of the plans that came out with the strongest and most robust community engagement strategies that bridged both local and regional communities, as well as in the responsiveness. So not just checking the box on engagement, but actually integrating into the plan designs that really respond to the requests of various ethnic communities, adding in features that are more inclusive of how they like and are able to recreate in the outdoors, people that are older, as well as populations underserved currently by our regional facilities, so particularly young people over the age of 14, but under the age of 24. And so it was really wonderful to hear 2 of some of the oldest MPOSC members or commissioners not oldest in age, but in length of service on the commission, but they might also be older in age too. So not to confuse that, really talk about how this is a no-brainer from an equity perspective. And so just wanted to share that little bit of additional perspective and share also my absolute support for this plan, and that it's we're actually seeing the fruits of our equity efforts pay out. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen, for that perspective and for your service representing the council in MPOSC as well. Any other comments, questions for Mr. Kelly on this report?
One from me, Mr. Chair. This is Peter.
Councilmember Lindstrom. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Just really two quick questions. One, I have not heard of this. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. The Sepak Takraw game, and I'm curious to know more about that. It sounds intriguing, and then if the funding comes into place as anticipated, when could we expect to see this come to fruition? Both this project and the Grand Rounds Trail in St. Paul.
Mr. Chair, can I help answer the first question?
Yes, I was going to ask either Mr. Kelly or my fellow council members. Please educate me. Thank you.
Councilmember Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Lindstrom, for a great question. Takraw is a very very interesting sport. It's there's a lot of flair. Imagine playing volleyball but with your feet. That's literally what it is, and it's hugely popular in Southeast Asia. In fact, I think I'm pretty sure it's in the Southeast Asian Games. And so because it's so much like soccer, which is the world sport, is wildly popular in Southeast Asia. And so a lot of Hmong folks, Thai folks, Lao folks, and Burmese folks play it. And so I think it's really responsive to the newer Americans who are coming here.
Thank you. I've seen that game, Mr. Chair, and I didn't know what the name of it, and I think I'd need to be about 25 years younger for me to give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Kelly, did you have a response to Councilmember Lindstrom's second question about the timeline?
Indeed. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilmember Lindstrom, going back to Grand Round North Regional Trail, there's a table within the staff report or business item that outlines the anticipated sequencing and completion of the different components, different segments of the regional trail corridor. Like I said, about a third of it is already complete. The remaining 2/3 are slated to be completed over the next few years, specific segments next year, and in 2022, other segments may be a little bit further down the road. But again, that table has the specifics you might be looking for there. Of course, funding is key in that case, and in this case as well. I'm not exactly sure what the specific timeline is for making these improvements in the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board system. But typically, it is typical, I should say, that these projects will begin to ramp up in the next 3 to 5 years once a master plan is approved. There's of course lots of caveats, but that's a pretty good ballpark.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Further discussion or questions? Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just was going to tell the committee I looked up that sport that Councilmember Lee spoke of before this meeting, and if anybody else was interested, there's video, of course, online, and you can get a little flavor of what it is.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any further comments? Yeah, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you. I want to thank Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen because she answered all my questions that I had, even before I asked them, so way to go. I also just really appreciate the work behind this. This is the neighborhood that I owned my first home and started my young family. And, that was a long time ago. And I can tell you it was, first of all, Northside pride, right? Camden, woo, way to go. Love that community with my whole heart. yet I would say there's so much industrial, and with the railroad tracks, and it was just so cut off. And over time, council members, and I could name many, have worked in the area, and the park system and the park board. But I was there recently, and it's transforming, and it's because of this type of work. And with Camden Town now emerging, right, and rebranding and trying to build new identity and investments for this part of the community, I'm just really thrilled, and I couldn't be more prouder to support this. And it's giving another legacy in life, and new history, bringing and pairing it with all the former history of this land. So I don't know, it just really means a lot to me, and I'm just thrilled to see all the changes. And I also can see the intentionality of trying to connect where industry and railroads and big roadways, this brings connectivity, and I really appreciate that. So kudos to everybody who's worked on it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further conversation on this item, Councilmember Chambliss.
Oh, thank you. It's just, it was a great presentation. Great to hear the council members' comments and involvement on this project as well. We all have our own personal stories, and my parents got their first house in the Camden area, and I actually lived within a couple blocks of the junior high where the improvements are. So it's great to be kind of full circle and be a part of this planning effort. And I'm looking forward to seeing the area grow and change over the years.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Chambliss. Further discussion, Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you. I've been waving my hand for a while, and I wasn't sure if you could see me or not.
My apologies. I can't see everybody all at once. My apologies, Councilmember.
So, okay, I think this is a fantastic plan in terms of the mixture of uses and whatnot. But my concern is that we're mixing city park amenities and regional amenities into one trail plan. And if we do that all over the region, we're going to end up paying for basketball courts and tennis courts and pickleball courts and skate parks and everything in any wide place along any regional trail in the region, which is nice, but those are city park things, and city parks should pay for city park things, and regional park system should pay for regional park things. So as much as I love this, and my husband actually did used to play Tacraw, he's 56 now, and whacking his head with that, because you do it with your head, you can hit the ball with your forehead or with your feet, but it's a really hard woven ball. It's like made out of basket material, and anytime he'd play, he'd end up with a black and blue forehead from whacking his head on the ball. But those are fantastic amenities. But the way I see this plan is that we should be drawing a line along the trail and saying, okay, regional money pays for the trail corridor, and then we partner with this, because Minneapolis is a little different from some of the other agencies. I mean, Bloomington and St. Paul also have city parks and regional parks, but the rest of the system is city parks are separate from the regional park. With Minneapolis, it makes it easier. They acquired the land, so there is no land cost issue. But as far as the ongoing funding, we should be drawing a line at whatever diameter across the trailway, and the things outside that are local park, and you put anything you want there with city money, and great, it brings people to the trail, it exposes people to the trail, exposes people on the trail to other things. But from a funding standpoint, long term, I think having those uses included as part of a regional trail is a slippery slope that's going to be a mess all over the region. I mean, the regional park money is for regional uses, and those are really local uses. They're great uses, but they're not regional uses. And so I love this, and I think it's a fantastic plan, but I'm going to have to vote no on the funding part of it, the potential future funding part of it, because it should be separated into regional trail with local park amenities along the side, which is an easy thing to do, but the city of Minneapolis didn't choose to do that.
Thank you, Councilmember Atlas. Question, yeah, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen.
Oh, no, this is just in response to Councilmember Wolf's point, and I would encourage that staff chime in, but I just want to reiterate that everybody, is, entitled, of course, to their perspective and opinion. We allow for many things in regional facilities, and this plan has gone through our staff's review. It has gone through the Met Council's, or the Metropolitan Regional Parks and Open Space Commission's review, and has been analyzed for its compliance with our programs as they are outlined, and has made it to this point because it has met those expectations. I would also offer maybe just one point to think about some of the examples of how we're being responsive to changing demographics, both in new populations, as we identified with the chief corporate courts, and existing in the but however existing populations who are currently underserved with actually truly regional amenities. Skateboard parks are playgrounds for children who are a little older. And this is the age group that is underserved currently by our regional parks. And as a result, we create a gap of participation in our regional parks. They're also regional. They draw people from all over. And if you, I know that in the very near future, we'll be able to see street light data that will be able to show and demonstrate that regional draw that skate parks are. So I just wanted to share that little bit of information and encourage Colin to maybe speak to the rest.
Yeah, thanks. And if I may, Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen, thanks. That actually just kind of tees up the question that I had for Mr. Kelly as well. And that relates to the supplemental information that was provided by the Minneapolis Park and Rec Board. And in their spreadsheet, they identify what's regional, what isn't regional. I'm just wondering, is this concurrence with their position, or is that a designation that's up for discussion or debate when the funding question comes forward, Mr. Kelly? And so sort of overlaying both Councilmember Wolf's and Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen's comments. So does the supplemental information designate those different facilities as either regional or not?
Mr. Chair, thank you for the question, and thank you for the comments from Councilmember Atlas Ingebrigtsen and Councilmember Wolf as well. I just want to point out that I'm seeing Emmett Mullen on the screen here as well, and so I just wanted to offer an opportunity, if it was appropriate for him to chime in if he would like.
Mr. Mullen, thanks for being here. Please.
Thank you, Chair Lilligren and council members, and thank you for this really good discussion. I just wanted to call out that Shingle Creek Regional Trail Master Plan, we actually spent 2 full Metropolitan Parks and Open Space Commission meetings on this plan. So there has been a real detailed discussion of this and what is being proposed. And I just want to be clear, particularly in light of Councilmember Wolf's concerns about sort of expanding out into sort of local park activities. The city, the Minneapolis Park and Recreation Board did submit, as Chair Lilligren pointed out, a 6-page memo that really carefully delineated what aspects of this regional trail will be regional, what they're proposing to be regional, and what should be local. And for those activities that what I'll call non-traditional activities, there is a process that's laid out in the Regional Parks Policy Plan in Chapter 7, the recreational facilities and amenities, that the park board followed. And what they did is they said, like CPAC Takra or the skate park, why is this regional? And they very carefully articulated why they felt they were making a case for regional. They strongly believe that these facilities will draw people from the region. There is a very strong intention that people will come down from the Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center, as well as other parts of the region, to play CPAC Takra or to use the pickleball courts. There aren't, and there also is a real design feature here, the idea that these facilities will be designed with the natural resource base in place. The final thing I'll say is this area was originally developed in, I think it was the 1930s, and it was a very wet area, and there was a lot of fill brought in, and the Shingle Creek corridor was largely a drainage ditch, and it's hasn't received that much attention ecologically, and this plan is really proposing to put that ecological attention to this area where there will be more native plantings, restoration. So I think this is, as a number of the council members spoke, this will be a real boost, and this corridor will feel much more like both a regional trail with park-like amenities, as well as an ecological, natural resource-based place. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mullen. Further discussion on this item? Am I missing anyone's hands? I apologize if I am.
Mr. Chair, can I respond?
Please, Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. I mean, I looked at the memo that the park board wrote about what they thought should be regional and what's not, and I just disagree with them on some of the aspects. I mean, out in my neck of the woods, all parks are doing ecological features. That doesn't make it a regional park, but places like Burnsville and other cities have skate parks and pickleball courts and stuff that are used by people from other cities. That's not that's a normal thing for people to go visit their friends and play on courts in different cities, or gather for a league or whatever in different cities. That doesn't make it a regional park, because I want to be able to treat everybody in the region the same, and to say that Minneapolis should get regional funding for their skate park that's next to a trail where Burnsville shouldn't. Or, I mean, I've had some of the communities in Dakota County would like us to buy the trail right away on regional trails that go through city parks. And I've told them that's ridiculous. You know, I mean, I'm trying to be, trying to be consistent throughout the, you know, and not put money in, because everybody wants money. Of course they want the money, you know, and we have to, in my mind, focus the money on the things that are truly regional, and those other things are fantastic. The things that they have along this trail are fantastic amenities. I'm not disagreeing with the plan at all. It's only the financing part, because that leads to greater visitation counts than you would have otherwise, because if you have people who only show up to play pickleball and they're not on the trail, that would still be counted as a regional park visitor when we're doing our regional park visits, which means that Minneapolis gets more money. That's not fair to another regional park that goes through a city park, but nothing that happens in the city park gets counted as a regional trail visitor. I'm just trying to keep everybody in the region treated the same. Like I said, I love the plan. It's a fantastic plan. But I remain concerned about treating some places differently than others, as far as when city park kind of things are next to a trail.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any further discussion, questions, comments? Hearing none, we have a proposed action before us, and I would entertain a motion to approve.
Chair, this is Councilmember Atlas Ingebretson, and with great pride and excitement, I move this for approval.
Thank you, Councilmember. Is there a second?
Councilmember Musa, second.
Thank you, Councilmember Musa. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion. Hearing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren, excuse me. Atlas Ingebretson?
Aye.
Chambliss?
Aye.
Cummings?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Lilligren?
Aye.
Lindstrom?
Aye.
Musse?
Aye.
Vento?
Aye.
Wolf?
Nay.
Thank you.
Thank you. That motion is adopted. And thank you to the park staff for your work and for your presentations. And we will move on to our final business item tonight. This is one that we've been introduced to a few times, and I appreciate staff for moving quickly on this opportunity and for keeping us informed as we go forward. And so it's item 2020-281. It's a joint committee same week item. So it's affordable housing program, unit purchase, and a special budget amendment. And Terry Smith is with us to present. Ms. Smith, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Terry Smith, and I'm the director of the Council's Housing and Redevelopment Authority. I apologize to those of you that were are part of the management committee also. So council members Lilligren, Lee, and Johnson heard this last Wednesday. I believe council member Vento also listened in on that meeting, and potentially council member Musse may have been absent. But so this will be a repeat for some of you, but we have a unique opportunity before us that I think is worth some discussion today. And so I'm presenting some information on a potential unit purchase under the Family Affordable Housing Program. Next slide, please. I wanted to provide just a few slides to provide some background and history on the Family Affordable Housing Program to really help set the stage and answer the question of why the council owns housing. This may be some repeat for you all as well from a previous information item on the Family Affordable Housing Program. This program goes back to a 1992 class action lawsuit that was filed by a group of public housing residents against the city of Minneapolis, the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority, and others that alleged historic patterns of racial segregation within the city. Resulting from that lawsuit came the Holman Consent Decree in 1995, and that decree required the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority to demolish 770 units of public housing and redevelop them or recreate them in non-concentrated areas of the region, including areas within the city as well as suburban locations. At that time, there was really a regional effort to meet the intent of the decree and the requirements of the decree. And the Metropolitan Council was a partner in that, in agreeing to develop 150 units of public housing. Next slide, please. Again, the council committed to developing 150 units of public housing. Statute 473.195 allows the council with the authority to develop housing units with the approval of municipalities. So back between 2001 and 2004, the council purchased 150 units of housing on the open rental market. They're located in 11 suburban communities throughout Hennepin, Ramsey, and Anoka counties. We have cooperation agreements in place with each of those cities for that purpose. The council took formal action in 1999 that established the Family Affordable Housing Program, and we received $28 million from HUD through the Minneapolis Public Housing Authority to develop these units. And although the action from January 1999 allowed for the development of 300 units, the council only purchased 150, and that was largely due to funding limitations at that time. Next slide, please. Here are a few charts that show you where the units are located. Again, 150 units in suburban Anoka, Hennepin, and Ramsey counties. 76 of these units are single-family homes, 65 are townhomes, and 9 are twin homes. Of the 9 twin homes, in 2 cases, the council owns both sides of the twin home, and in 7 cases, the council only owns one half of the unit. Next slide, please. Here's a map that shows the location of these units. As you can see, suburban Anoka, Hennepin, and Ramsey counties. Next slide, please. We have a current opportunity before us, and council staff were approached by the owner of a neighboring twin home in Maple Grove to determine if the council had interest in purchasing the other half. This just happened within the last few weeks. As a result, the council's HRA staff, along with the real estate development staff, visited the unit. Although the unit needs some really just TLC and cosmetic internal improvements, the unit is structurally sound. The council's real estate development staff conducted a unit appraisal and determined that the value is reasonably priced. If the council were able to purchase this unit, that would assist with asset management protection. So if we have more control over the asset if we own both sides. It would also add a unit to the FOP portfolio for rental by a low-income family, thereby expanding housing choice for low-income families within the region. Next slide, please. So where would the money come from to purchase this unit? There's $500,000 programmed into the 2020 authorized capital program. That includes general purpose levy funding, and the funds were targeted for FOP maintenance, unit maintenance, and capital needs. The FOP units have historically been maintained and capital projects have been completed through the operating budget. You may recall an information item that was presented to you a few weeks ago by Heather August and Hebner, where we're attempting to shift that to create a formalized capital program. So what I'm proposing today is that we amend the 2020 authorized capital program and repurpose a portion of these funds to allow for the unit purchase. If the council approves this action and authorize us to do this, it will not delay or otherwise impede any planned improvements on the Family Affordable Housing Program units. We had a third-party property inspection done in 2019 that determined all the FOP units are really in good repair and good condition for their age. We need to do a more thorough asset assessment of these units, and we had planned in 2020 to do a more thorough unit inspection, but COVID-19 has delayed that. So we're hoping to get back into the units in 2021 to more formalize this capital improvement plan. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, there was an information item presented to the management committee on October 14th, where there seemed to be support for this proposed idea. Today, of course, I'm presenting formal action by the Community Development Committee. The full council will hear this item or take formal action on October 28th. The city is scheduled to go to their council for formal approval on November 4th, as this unit purchase will need formal approval by the city of Maple Grove. We would propose then closing on the housing unit the end of November. In December, we would propose conducting some unit improvements, mainly cosmetic. And then in January, we would hope to rent the unit to a low-income family. Next slide, please. So the proposed action, which is quite lengthy before you today, is that the Metropolitan Council amend the Metro Housing and Redevelopment Authority existing capital program authority by reducing Family Affordable Housing Program Project 14652 by $200,000 and transfer the $200,000 to a new project, Family Affordable Housing Program House Acquisition Project with the new project. Number 2, to authorize the purchase of a property located at 7378 Vinewood Court in the city of Maple Grove. To authorize the Community Development Director to execute the necessary documents for the acquisition of this property. and to direct staff to develop a policy identifying under which conditions the council would purchase the second half of a duplex where the council already owns half, as well as consider other opportunities for sale of existing properties and the acquisition of others. A lot of words, Mr. Chair. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Questions on that report? Councilmember Cummings, did you have a question? Yeah, Councilmember Cummings and then Chambliss.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering on the previous slide, the last bullet point, I know it says, if we can go back one slide there, directing staff to develop policy, blah, 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 blah. I think this was a great opportunity. I'm wondering, so the current owner came to the Met Council, correct? And we have never reached out to the owners of the other privately owned halves to see if they might be interested, but this would allow for us to perhaps be a little bit more proactive in obtaining the second half. I think it just sounds like such a winning proposition to me.
Mr. Chair and Councilmember Cummings, that's correct. We have never approached the other 7 unit owners where we own just half of a unit. But that comment also came up at the management committee that maybe perhaps that's a step we could take, trying to identify a source of funds, identify some action steps, and when we will consider either reaching out to the neighboring homeowners or consider purchasing a unit. Are there parameters we should be setting up as to when we would sell a unit? And so having some of those intentional conversations with you all as we design and develop the capital program further.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Cummings and Ms. Smith. And before I recognize Councilmember Chambliss, I'll just also point out, so our housing inventory has been static, right, since the Holman decree, since we acquired the properties in this regional workout. And I'll just remind my committee colleagues that I actually governed under that decree when I was on the Minneapolis City Council, and governing under decree is not fun. I will say that as well. But really, I think this is prompting conversations about the sort of low-hanging fruit of the other halves of duplexes we may own, but also how do we as a property owner responsibly manage our residential inventory. And so I'm really appreciative of Ms. Smith and her team bringing this forward. I anticipate it will spark some interesting conversation for sure as we go forward. Further discussion, Councilmember Chambliss. Councilmember Chambliss.
Okay, now you can hear me, I suppose.
Yep.
This is good to look at. I know that we are looking for opportunities for a larger number of bedrooms, and this would obviously address that problem for our renters. I'm curious to know how many people would be served if we were not going to buy these 2 units? How many affordable housing homes can $200,000 cover, or rentals?
So you're wondering how far the 200, sorry, Mr. Chair, Councilmember Chambliss, so you're wondering how far, how many families under the regular voucher program could $200,000 support?
Yeah.
Let me do a quick calculation here. I mean, based on average HAP today, that's 20 families. $200,000 is enough to serve 20 families for a year. I think the important part to remember is that we are unable to use local money towards subsidy for the Housing Choice Voucher Program and then gain that back from the federal government. So although we can use our money for, a 1-year period of time, local money, we don't get that back in a federal budget to continue providing service to families.
Because of the COVID care money?
Mr. Chair and Councilmember Chambliss, no, overall, the HUD prohibits us from using local money for HAP, housing assistance payments.
Okay, so it would just be a 1-year benefit if we were to use that money for the vouchers, or am I misunderstanding still?
Mr. Chair, I think problem is you run out of money real fast when you start using local money for HAP, housing assistance payments, because we don't get that money back. So although this year we could maybe use it to serve 200 additional families, next year we wouldn't have the money to continue providing service to them.
Okay, that's good to know. We do have, housing crisis, homelessness crisis, and 1 year with a place to stay until we can find some more money, is one way to look at it. And then how would we inform people about, let's say we voted and we were to approve this amendment, how would we inform people about this opportunity, and what would the selection and approval process be like?
Mr. Chair and Councilmember Chambliss, the unit would be filled with our current waiting list for the Family Affordable Housing Program. So the unit that I'm proposing to purchase is a 3-bedroom today, but can be pretty easily turned into a 4-bedroom housing unit, and with very minimal improvements. And so what we would do is market the unit to the current families that are on the Family Affordable Housing Program waiting list for a 4-bedroom.
And they would come off of that waiting list via lottery?
Mr. Chair and Councilmember Chambliss, they are ordered by date and time. So it would be the family that they're placed on the waiting list in lottery order. So we would take the top family, and that placement was determined by a lottery.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further questions on this report or this proposed action? Again, I can't really. Okay, Councilmember Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just reiterate what I said in the management committee. I think this is really great. It's very opportune for us to take a look at the other half of an asset that we already own. And I really appreciate, again, Terry's thoughtfulness on kind of coming back years later and trying to approach with some strategy and plan in place on how we're going to continue this program and where there could be some other opportunities. This actually is located in my district, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do a 3 or 4 bedroom in the Maple Grove area, and I know the city is very supportive as well. So even though our money is never going to go as far as we want it to, in this case, I think it's the right time for the right property. And again, I really want to be proactive in just checking out those other properties where we don't own the other half. I think there's an advantage not only for us in some economies of scale, but again, they get, the families get yards and bigger spaces and more bedrooms, and those are in short supply too. So kudos to Terry and her team. Appreciate the hard work.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further discussion, Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this is an interesting opportunity, and I'm supportive of it. I do want to find out more before going after other properties, as far as what sort of financing would we looking to Minnesota Housing to help pay for it, or where would the money come from in terms of doing more? But from a maintenance standpoint, owning both sides of a duplex certainly is a lot easier than owning just one. So for this one, for sure, yes, but I'd need to find out more information if we're going to go after more.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further discussion, Councilmember Chambliss.
Just one more question. How much would we rent the unit out for, and how much would the voucher cover?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Chambliss. I need to look up the rent. And under the project-based voucher program, tenants pay 30% of their income towards rent. So Whoever rents it will pay 30% of their income towards rent. The actual rent, I need to look at it. I'm blanking out today, so hang on one second. I'm sorry about that. Give me just a minute here. So it'll be a 4-bedroom unit in Maple Grove. Here it comes. Rent on that would be $1,850. The tenant would pay 30% of their income towards rent, and then the balance would be made in a payment to the owner from HUD.
Okay, and you would do. We discussed doing some general improvements to the property, including adding another bedroom. What are the other types of improvements? Would it be replacing carpeting, sheetrocking? What?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Councilmember Chambliss. That's exactly it. It needs new carpeting. It needs some sheetrock work. It needs, we would need to just build a wall to create the 4th bedroom, potentially new appliances, paint. The structure itself, the siding was replaced in 2008 as a result of hail damage. The siding's in really good shape. So it's just more of those cosmetic things.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to reiterate the point that Ms. Smith made, that this could, for minimal dollars, be converted to a 4-bedroom home. I think that that's really, really important. That's such a scarce commodity, and for us to be able to have control of a 4-bedroom unit and be able to offer that, I think, is a really important point in this particular situation, and it's very exciting to maybe be able to offer that.
Thank you, Councilmember. Further discussion on this report? And again, I can't see it all at once, so if you're raising your hand, please just speak up. Further discussion. Hearing none, Ms. Smith has. Oh, I'm sorry, please.
Sorry, I was just looking at the pictures of the similar unit online, and yeah, it looks like it would be a nice home. It would make someone very happy. So I just had a question about the lottery pick. Are you also basing it on a request for 3 or 4 bedroom units? And would a person that wanted a 4-bedroom unit have a higher weight than someone wanting a 3-bedroom unit, or how does that work?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Chambliss, excuse me, we have what's called subsidy standards. So we determine bedroom size that a family is eligible based on the age and relationship of the household members. So we would reach out to families that are on the waiting list that are eligible for a 4-bedroom unit.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. And committee members, I was interim CEO at Little Earth of United Tribes, which is a project-based Section 8 housing development as well in South Minneapolis. And lists are very dynamic things I learned there, and these contributing factors, bedroom size, family size, age, make it much more dynamic than I thought it would be just sort of taking the next person on the list. So I appreciate you and your team's work on that as well, Terry. Further discussion on this item? And again, I can't see you, so please just speak up. Further discussion. Seeing that Ms. Smith has proposed a series of actions relative to this acquisition, and I would entertain a motion to approve.
Cummings moves approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Johnson seconds.
Thank you, council members. Discussion on the motion. Any discussion? I'm not seeing any or hearing any. So, Michelle, please call the roll.
Yes, Chair Lilligren. Atlas Ingebrigtsen. Chambliss.
Aye.
Cummings.
Was late.
Aye.
Aye.
I got you. Thank you. Johnson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Lilligren.
Aye.
Lindstrom.
Aye.
Musse.
Aye.
Vento.
Aye.
Wolf.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That item is adopted, and that was our final business item. Director Barajas, anything else before we adjourn?
I do not have any other items for you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Committee members, anything? I do want to thank staff for the help getting this public hearing together in a different format, the sort of panelist format, and I think things went very well. So I appreciate the help and support. And seeing no further business before this committee, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone.